Hello there. My name is Peter Chand and I'm a storyteller. So, the spring equinox, as you probably know, is an important time of the year. It's a very important day because it's when darkness and light, well, they're equal amounts. And also, it means that after then, well, the days are going to get longer. And spring is on its way. And you know what spring means? Light's returning, colors returning, light returning after the long winter. And in the astrological calendar, equinox always falls under Aries. You might know Aries, the ram with those curly horns. So here's a story from India. It's from the Sandal people in the east. And it's a story about a king. And this king, if you can imagine, he had the most beautiful long eyelashes. He had the most shiny black hair that curled around the nape of his neck. They said his teeth, well, they shone like polished cowrie shells. His eyes, well, they were the color of roasted almonds, soft and beguiling. He was a beautiful man. But the problem was, he knew he was a beautiful man. So all day he would be in front of the shisha, in front of the mirror going, "Ah, that's funny. Ah, hello, handsome. How are you? Looking good. Left profile, right profile. Yeah, liking what I'm seeing." He wouldn't pass a reflection. He had washing his face in a bowl of water. He would just stand there staring for hours upon hours, admiring his own beauty. He was neglecting all his duties in the court, and of course the courtiers were going crazy, pulling their hair out, thinking, "What's going to happen to us without his guidance?" Now, one day the king was there, the vain king, looking in the mirror as usual, going, "Oh my goodness me, you're breathtaking. You are so gorgeous. I'd say you're even more handsome than Indra, the god Indra." And who was passing by exactly at that time, checking up on the people? Indra, Lord Indra, who was the king of heaven. He was the god of war. And he heard these words and he said, "Acha, acha, more handsome than me are you, dear Klunga? We'll see then what happens in the morning." So the very next morning, well, when the vain king got up, he rose and had a good old stretch. And of course, first thing he did was, before anything else, he went up to his full length mirror there in his chambers. And when he looked, he let out a shriek because what did he see? There, protruding from his head, were two curly ram's horns. And he pulled and he tugged and he pulled and he tugged and he tried to twist, but they wouldn't shift. They were stuck hard. And he called for his barber. His barber knocked on the door and he said, "Barber, listen, you're going to see something now. It's going to be a bit unconventional." He says, "But please," he says, "you have to be sworn to secrecy. Don't tell anybody this, all right?" He says, "Otherwise, for you. Now, come and sort my problem out." And the barber slowly crept inside. He looked and he saw those curly ram's horns on the king's head. And he went, "Oh my goodness, Your Majesty, how did this happen?" He says, "I don't know. I was just acting my normal self." He says, "Well, don't worry, I've got tools here." And he opened his bag, and the first thing he took out was his blade. But of course, it didn't matter how much he hacked and he cut, all that he did was put little chinks into the blade. That was no good. "Ah, my scissors." So he took his scissors, and, tick, tick, and a second later, those scissors fell apart. No matter what he tried, he could not get rid of those horns. Thinking, "Ah, I know what I'll do, Your Majesty." From his bag, he pulled out some fabric length that was the length of a turban, and he wrapped that red silk around his head, and he wrapped them around the horns. And then he took some jewels, some ornaments, good accessories, and he hung them there, rubies and diamonds and pearls. And when the king shook his head, well, it shook like a Christmas tree. And he says, there you go, Your Majesty. That's the best thing that I can do. I can disguise it, at least if I can't remove it." Well, the next day, the king, he didn't want to even look into the mirror because that's the last thing he wanted to see, how hideous he looked. So instead, he attended court. And a strange thing happened because people said, "Ah, Maharaj, Maharaj, welcome back, Your Majesty. It's great to see you again," thinking that he'd changed and that he was now taking his responsibilities seriously. But of course, the king just sat there in a somber mood, just thinking about the secret that lay beneath his turban. "Why me? What have I ever done to anybody?" thought the king. Now, a little while later, there was a storm, such a horrendous storm. And one of his favourite trees, a tamarind tree, well, it had been uprooted. And when the gardeners came and said, "Maharaj, what should we do?" And he says, "Chop it up," he says, "and give some of the wood to my drummer. He needs a new drum, a new war drum. And the rest of the wood," he says, "well, send to the kitchens and they can use it for kindling." That was done. A beautiful drum was made. And when the drummer saw the drum, he could not believe how beautiful it was. It sparkled and shone, and he was so excited. And he felt the skin and he felt the wood. And he started having a bit of a practice on it. What a sound. What an echo. What perfect wood it was. But then he heard a whisper. Maharaj, 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 the king. What's he trying to tell me? The king, the king. The king's got ram's horns. The king, the king, the king's got ram's horns. And he got louder. The king, the king, the king's got ram's horns. The king, the king, the king's got ram's horn. Every single person heard it. Everybody in the palace heard it. Every person in the kingdom heard it. And the king, of course, heard those words echoing through his ears. And he thought, everybody knows, everybody knows. And in shame, he fled. He left the palace through a secret entrance. He made his way around the back of the orchards and he found himself deep, deep, deep into the forest, just walking in a deep, deep depression. Everybody knows now. He says, that's it, I'm ruined. And he sat down. He sat down thinking what he was going to do next. He passed such an awkward night, such a horrible, painful night. But in the morning, well, he was sitting there and having his few crumbs of food when he heard a fluttering sound. And when he looked, well, what did he see? But a little bird had fallen from its nest and its wing was damaged. So he put his hand out, and the bird, well, managed to make its way to its hand and sat on his palm. And he gave it a few crumbs of its few food, a few pieces of laddu, and that bird ate. And then it sort of scuttled off and hid away for a few hours until it came back. And now it was thirsty, so he took some of his water and he put it in the cup of his palm and he handed it to the bird, and the bird drank, and the bird was grateful. And several days later, after being nursed by the king, well, it fully recovered and off it flew, spread its wings, and said, Zindabad Maharaj, Zindabad Maharaj, long live the king. What a kind king, what a generous king. And that bird told the other animals, and whenever there was a deer that had a thorn in its hoof, well, it would limp over and the king would tend to it. Whenever an owl had hurt its eye, well, he would tend to that eye. Any animal would come and he would help. And a strange thing happened, unknown to him, because now he wasn't thinking about himself, he was thinking about others. As he began to help others, those horns reduced, and soon they disappeared. And you know what? He didn't even notice because he was not caring about his looks anymore. And one day, well, one of the viziers, the ministers, well, he was riding through the forest and he saw the king there surrounded by all these different beasts, looking after them, tending them, caring for them, being kind and benevolent. Maharaj, Maharaj, he says, we've been looking for you everywhere. Please come back. The kingdom's not the same without you. The palace is not the same without you. Please, we need our king. We need his guidance and we need his wisdom. And the king stood up. And as he stood up, he said goodbye to his birds and his animals. And he said, if you ever need me, he says, come to my palace and I will take care of you. And as he walked past, he said, Maharaj, it's great news about your horns, isn't it? My horns? He says, yes. Have you not noticed? And when he looked, he says, no, I hadn't. He says, it's amazing. It's like a miracle. And the king went back, and you know, he ruled well. He ruled kindly, and he took care of his people, and he took care of all the animals. And you know what? Every now and again, he would rub his head and just feel the absence of those horns and remind himself what it meant to be a human being and what it meant to be a king.